Okay, so there's this amazing tweet, and it goes like this. It says, there are 7.5 billion people in the world. Jeff Bezos could literally end world poverty and give everyone $1 billion, and he'd still have 91.5 billion left. So actually the numbers is this. Jeff Bezos has about $200 billion. The world is about 8 billion people, which means he would be able to give every person about $25 and have nothing left. Maths is hard. So why don't the rich help the poor? Well, that's what this video is all about. Hi, my name is Tyus. I make videos about personal freedom, escaping the rat race, liberty, living your freest life possible. And part of living your freest life possible is having financial freedom, which is why a lot of people tune into this channel. And a lot of people, when they don't have financial freedom, they point the finger at the rich. They point the finger at the people that do have that financial freedom. And that's why Bernie Sanders has had a campaign of taxing the rich at 90%, or AOC recently wore a dress that said tax the rich to the Met Gala. It's very, very common to demonize the rich, but there's a reason the rich actually don't help the poor, and that's what this video is going to be about. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the 6 different kinds of rich people that are out there, and you should also stay to the very end because I've got a little bit of a surprise ending. There's a hook at the end that I don't think you want to miss. Okay, so let's dive in with the first kind of wealth. I don't want to string this along too far. The first kind of wealth is what I'm going to classify as evil wealth. These are the bad guys. These are who we talk about when we talk about evil, despicable people. And I'll give you a couple of hints on how to identify these kinds of people. One of the big ones is that they're massively wealthy, and yet they claim that they're always there to help the poor. But they do it often for your vote. I think of these people as politicians. They desire power and control, and they are strangely very, very wealthy despite the amount of money that it takes to get them into office. The reason these people are so bad is, honestly, they have to be. They are continually perpetuating bad ideas because that's what keeps them in business. For example, the military-industrial complex. Without it, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, these companies that make our war machines, they would be out of business. So they have an incentive with all of their money to keep wars going. And politicians have these same levels of incentives. Plus, these politicians give unnatural monopolies to companies. Let me give you an example of that. Let's say road construction. Have you ever noticed that every road in the country seems to always be under construction and the construction never seems to be stopping? Now, we know roads break down, but in a normal capitalistic society, what happens is if a road construction company is bad at their job, if they do subpar work or they charge too much or their work seems to continually break down, well, another company will come in and compete with them. However, when the government gives a company exclusive rights and says you're the only ones that are going to be allowed to do construction on our roads, they now have an incentive to slow down their production. They decrease the quality. They can increase the cost because there's no one that's allowed to compete with them. These people, be it politicians or these organizations that are intentionally utilizing people's money for their own advantage, these people are strictly evil in my brain. And I know they're not evil in their own brain. They're probably more on the sociopathic, psychopathic level of thinking. So I don't want to demonize them too much. However, it's no surprise why they're not helping the poor. These are people that are interested in power and control. They don't want to give that up at any point. And this is one of the reasons why government-issued monopolies are so dangerous. Natural monopolies, monopolies where I corner a business around, let's say I'm making HDMI cables. The only way I could have a monopoly on HDMI cables if the government doesn't give me that monopoly and restrict other companies from doing it is I would have to produce the best HDMI cable for the lowest possible price that no other company could compete with because I'm that good at doing it. And if any other company could compete with it, well, I would lose some of my market share. So when a government comes in and gives a monopoly, that doesn't exist anymore. And that's why these are so dangerous. Monopolies aren't bad. Government-issued monopolies are bad. And so the evil level of wealth, I believe, comes from people that are either in politics specifically or that work within politics as crony capitalists. These are companies that work alongside politicians to pass laws for their own benefit so that everybody else fails. This is the evil class of wealth. But let's move on to the other 5 categories. The next kind of wealth is what I call stability-based wealth. Now, my grandfather lived through the Great Depression. which, as I understand it, was very traumatic, and he saved every penny. He was afraid to waste anything. He would reuse napkins, and it was kind of gross at the time watching it. However, from his perspective, he knew that resources could be gone at any moment. So it was very, very common to use powdered milk in that household, no matter what. And he ended up amassing a kind of a small fortune for himself, which ended up getting passed on to my aunts and uncles and my mother when he passed away. Now, he was focused specifically on stability. He wanted to make sure that he was never going to be put in a situation where he was concerned about what he was going to eat or how his family was going to survive in the future. He held on to everything he could, and I don't blame him for it. We all go through our own path and our own life and our own experiences. However, somebody who has an experience like this cares so much about wealth that they're going to hold on to it because they fear the scarcity of not having it. So this is the kind of person that is not going to help the poor, specifically because they're afraid that they're going to return to being the poor at any given time. They're afraid that the rug is going to get pulled out from under them and they're going to lose it all, which has happened to people in the past. So stability-based wealth, they don't help the poor because they're afraid that they're going to rejoin that population at any given time, and they don't want to have that level of scarcity inflicted upon them. The next kind of wealth I call surprise or luck-based wealth. The classic version of this would be somebody who wins the lottery or somebody who wins a sweepstakes. Maybe it's somebody that made a really good bet on the stock market and got super lucky. They'd never necessarily be able to do that again. Maybe this is an athlete or an actor, somebody who just got famous kind of out of luck, out of circumstance. This just happened to them. And these people can gather a lot of money and then go broke really, really fast. In fact, it's been shown that lottery winners are generally less happy with their life than quadriplegics are after a certain duration of time. Honestly, lottery winners lose almost all of their money that they acquire, and it's classic to see like professional athletes go out and buy massive houses and then they get injured and suddenly they can't afford the upkeep of their life. They don't know how they earned that money, so they're actually not seeing perpetual income streams coming in, and because of that, they don't have money to give out, and that is why luck-based wealth often does not give to the poor. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they do it out of bad financial planning because they don't realize that they're going to run out of this wealth often very, very quickly. However, sometimes they will make a large charitable donation, sometimes to cover their own taxes, but most of the time they don't help the wealth, or they don't help the poor because they don't know how they made the money to begin with. Now you might be saying to yourself, that's not fair. A lot of athletes and actors know exactly how they built their wealth and know that they could repeat that process in the future. And that's true. A lot of them do, but they fall into a different category of wealth that I like to call skill-based wealth. This is also a category where business owners often fall into. A lot of business owners have built a set of skills that they can implement over and over and over again in order to generate wealth for themselves. They're really, really successful, and this is honestly a really great place to be if you are trying to become wealthy, is to build your skill sets up so that you can then utilize those skills to make yourself income. You do that by adding value to other people's lives. This channel, in at least a quarter of this channel, is dedicated specifically to this skill set. However, why do these people not help the poor? The big reason is they know how hard it is to create wealth. They've worked really, really hard to get there. Now this gives them two vantage points. One vantage point is that anybody could do it if they knew what these people knew and were willing to work as hard as they worked. The other vantage point is that they worked so hard, they think they earned that money and other people aren't entitled to the work that they put out there, both of which are true arguments. However, there are people that will never have the same means or the same knowledge as them. But ultimately, the reason that skill-based wealth often doesn't help the poor is because they value the work that they put in so much, they understand the effort, that they are not willing to give that up because they feel they earned it. But let's get into the super rich, the big boys, the crazy, crazy rich people out there, the Bezoses, the Musks. These people earn money for a very different reason than those that have skills and just build a normal business. See, most people that have skills and build a business, they know how much effort was put into it and they cap their risk at a certain point because they're afraid of losing it and they know that the work to get there was so difficult. But there's another breed of people, and this is a very rare breed of people that are based really off of their purpose, their mission. Their mission is what drives them, and because of that mission, they're willing to lose it all if that's what it's going to take to succeed. And you can see this with people like Musk, who has put all of his money really into his businesses and risked losing it all. They know at any given time, if their companies were to fail, they would fail. However, their purpose is so strong, they feel that this is the only way to move humanity forward. It's not necessarily a matter of greed, it's a matter of purpose and focus and force. They want to help society in a big way. So why do these people not help the poor? Well, the reason is because they believe that the best way to help the poor is in the mission that they're doing. So Bezos probably believes that what he's doing as far as creating a distribution network and getting products to people at the lowest possible prices ever is going to reduce the problem for the poor. It means that goods and services can be received by poor people where they would never have access to that before. Now, Elon Musk, very, very different focus. He's focusing on fixing transportation issues, getting us to a different planet so that if a meteor hits our planet, we are a multi-planetary species. These are big, big projects. But they don't want to give their money away to other people because if they do, they couldn't fulfill their mission. Their mission is too big for them to give up on. If you want money from these people, you've got to find ways that aligns with their vision of what they're going for and what they want. If you can add to their mission, I believe they would give you as much money as you wanted, provided it corresponded to the value they need in fulfilling their purpose. But that is why these kinds of people do not give money randomly just to the poor. It's not a random effort. These guys, they're on a mission. Now, there are also millionaires and billionaires out there that have gained their wealth through inheritance. Their family members have died, passed the money on to them, and now they're sitting on a small fortune that they didn't necessarily earn themselves. Why would these people not help the poor? Well, in some cases, these people will. This is the most likely situation where they're going to give their money away to help the poor. Now, in some versions of this, these people have been taught by their families to value the money that they were brought up with, or they've been given specific spending habits, or they were given the money in a trust that dictated how they could spend the money. So they might not be able to donate it all away. They might have to follow the wishes of the person that died, and it might say, hey, sorry, this money is in a trust only for college and for starting a business and for whatever specific terms they're locked into. However, a lot of people that have inherited tremendous amounts of wealth, they do give a lot of money away. For example, the Waltons, the richest family on the planet are the Waltons, which is from the Walmart fortune, or the Koch brothers, which are very, very infamous within politics for donating money. So these people, they do donate money. However, oftentimes they are criticized for where they donate money to. So even though they're trying to help out causes that they believe are important or impactful, oftentimes people are going to criticize them anyways because they're donating money to places that don't align with everybody's vision. And the truth is, we live in a very divided country, a very divided world. It's very hard to just give money to a place or a person or an organization and not get pushback, because everybody's going to want it donated to the thing that is important to them, whether that is their own pocketbook, whether that is their own purpose, their own organization. So oftentimes, donating money to the poor or the purposes that you find impactful is going to result in you getting nothing more but criticism from your peers, which is an incentive not to donate money. However, if any group of the wealthy were to be donating a lot of money, it happens to be this group, the inherited wealth. It should also be mentioned that wealthy people often are very, very cash poor, at least on a relative basis. A lot of people think that wealthy people are just like Scrooge McDuck with a big tower full of money that they dive into and just have a great time in that money. The truth is, a lot of rich people don't have money. They're cash poor. What I mean by that is they have tremendously high net worths. Their personal value as a person, if they were to sell everything they owned, would be massive. But oftentimes their money is tied up in businesses or in assets. So you might be a multimillionaire, but all of your money is tied up in properties that are being rented out. You don't simply have a bunch of money to take and donate to organizations because your money is actually tied up into these assets or into these businesses. So for example, Elon Musk, 99% of his money is tied up in his companies. The guy couldn't donate a lot of money to charity, even if he he wanted to, specifically because that money is tied up in those companies. He'd have to sell off parts of those companies or pull money out of those companies, which would reduce their ability to do their job. So a lot of the rich can't donate to charities, can't help the poor because they don't even have control of the money that builds their own net worth. Now, with all this talk about how the rich do not help the poor, I should point out, to be fair, that the rich do actually give more money to the poor than anyone else. So for example, Bill Gates spent $36 billion on the poor. Warren Buffett, $34 billion. George Soros donated $32 billion. And you might say, well, yeah, they're donating to causes that they want. They're not actually helping everybody out. That's what taxes are for. That's why we need to tax the rich more. Well, believe it or not, the rich are taxed a lot more. 50% of the population, the richest 50%, the top half of our country's population, pay 97% of all taxes. So 97% is coming from the top 50%. And if you want to get narrowed down, 0.1%, so 0.1% pay 20% of all taxes. That means that the super rich are paying way more than anybody else in the country. Obviously, they must be. And I'm not a big fan of taxation. I personally think taxation is theft. But even if you were to look at just the charity side of it, the 1% top of the rich pay about 30% of all charitable donations in our country. So what is the takeaway? Well, it becomes really easy to want other people to solve our problems for us. We all do that. But if you want a really free life, the other side of that coin is to take responsibility for our own lives. We've got to own the mistakes, the wins, all of that we make. If we want the rich to give more to charity, let me give you some advice. Become rich and donate to charity. And I know that sounds a lot easier said than done, but it's something that you can actually control. While trying to tell somebody else what to do with their money, well, ultimately that's fascistic. That's tyrannical. That's not the way to live because that's not something you can control unless you decide to become a politician, which I'm not really in favor of that if I haven't made that clear throughout this video. Ultimately, we have to take our own personal responsibility at some point. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't help out other people around us. We should be living by example. So rather than watching the top 1% give 30% of all the charity that is donated, why don't we take that upon ourselves? In fact, in many ways we do. As a country, we are the most charitable country on the planet, the United States. If you're watching this in Australia, good on you, mate, but I'm talking about my US people right now. So hey, if you're enjoying these videos, I hope you keep watching them. I hope if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button below. I hope to see you on the next video.